Hi folks and welcome back to All Talk Scottish Premiership. As you can see, my lovely polka dot bedding in the background and my blanket to block out the sun on the right hand side as well. Riding solo tonight. This isn't even a bam up. We had a guest coming on tonight in Jordan McCary, who we maybe done a few episodes of the Football League show with Michael. He was supposed to be joining us. He was a last minute call off due to other commitments that he forgot about. And then Brooklyn has also had to cancel this week due to family issues. It's also happened very, very last minute. So wishing him and his family all the best as well. So just like the very first episode of All Talk Scottish Premiership, I'm just going to be riding solo for this episode. Some say I do love the sound of my own voice, but maybe not for as long as what this episode might be. Finally got the t-shirts, thanks to going to get them off a Paul. Sponsors VSN and then Pyramid Promotions on YouTube. You can also catch us on Spotify as well if you prefer listening to it. So yeah, getting right into it. I can't believe my polka dot bedding's that visible. I wish I changed that before I started. We'll get right into it. Basically, what we usually end with is like the predictions, but because this week there's no league football and Brooklyn's not here, and I wish there was predictions this week because he would have been null and void. But maybe that doesn't matter anyway with the scores that he got. So I'll just start off with the predictions because I won't be doing any at the end of the episode. So basically so I was on 22 points and Brooklyn was on 14. Now please remember that. I was on 22 points and Brooklyn was on 14. So Livy versus Hearts, I put 3-1 to Hearts and Brooklyn put 1 each. The score was 2-1 Hearts, which gives me a point. Motherwell Kilmarnock, I went 2-0 Motherwell. He went 2-1 Motherwell. It was 2 each, so 0 points. Rangers Celtic, I went 3-1 Celtic. He went 3-1 Rangers. It was 0-0. There's 0 points there yet again. Dundee versus Dundee United, I went 2 each. Brooklyn went 1-0 Dundee. It was 2-0 Dundee United, so there's 0 points yet again. Aberdeen Falkirk, I went 2-1 Aberdeen and he went 2-2. It was 1-0 Falkirk, there's 0 points. Hibs versus St Mirren, I went 2-1 Hibs and Brooklyn also went 2-1 Hibs, which was 1 each, so 0 points. Overall, there was 1 point scored and that was by myself. So one of the worst weeks in possible prediction history. So yeah, I finished that week on 23 points, gaining 1 point, and Brooklyn remains on 14. We also did predict that Celtic would go through. We both said Rangers would go out. We both said Hibs would go out. And we both said Aberdeen would go out. So regarding teams qualifying, we get 3 out of 4, or not qualifying. So yeah, moving on, just to kind of talk about the games, we're going to start with Hibs. Obviously, they're out of Europe. Really gutting for them, but I think it was expected. Obviously, that's what me and Brooklyn thought would happen. They gave Legia Warsaw a great game, especially away from home. Obviously, they made the subs at the end, which I personally don't think you make subs when you don't need to. And I think players sometimes, when things are going well, or like they're maybe like, I don't know, maybe that's the difference between a Premier League player's mentality and mine. But you're also kind of like, don't put me on here. Like, do not change the game. Like, you're winning. Like, see if my team was winning 2-1 and there's 10 minutes to go, unless somebody gets injured, nobody's getting brought off. Nobody. Because I just think that can change the momentum the other way. You're bringing on a player who needs to get up to speed with the game, and they're not going to do that in the last 10 minutes. So David Gray making subs when maybe he didn't need to, I think potentially cost them. But they went there and they gave it a go. Obviously, I did think in Europe at some point, I know I said they would go out, but I felt confident for them to get something. Which is why I put Hearts third on the predictions table. So now they don't have it, that potentially changes things. But great, a great point for Hibs. You know, obviously that that sort of European bounce back from Hibs. Obviously, a couple of weeks ago, they had Kilmarnock at home and drew with them. That bounce back, they've went out at Easter Road and St Mirren have got a point. St Mirren also looking good this year. They took Celtic to the last kind of kick of the game. The past 2 times they've been at Parkhead. They get a draw against Rangers and then going to Easter Road and getting a point as well. But obviously, Hibs picking up points at least after European games. They're going out there and they're not losing. Even though it's games they're maybe wanting to win, they're not losing them. And I don't mean to rush through these games here. It is just because I am myself. There is only so much talking I can do. But I do think Hibs still will finish 4th. I do have a good feeling about Hearts. As much as I slaughtered Tony Bloom the other week, I do have a good feeling about Hearts. And St Mirren, I think you're going to find them sort of mid-table. Obviously, they've been top 6 the past couple of years, but I still think you'll see them in the mid-table mark. So yeah, 1 each draw there, and Hibs also out of Europe. Going next to the other side of Edinburgh with Hearts, another late goal. Obviously, that's a couple of late goals already this season. Obviously, I remember one up at Dundee United as well, but it's getting them the 3 points, and as long as they're getting 3 points, that's all that matters. They're going to Livendale. That's what Livendale maybe need to called. Livingston need to called, but they're going to Livy with a good Davy Martindale side. Livy have surprised me a wee bit. I thought they would get kind of hammered in quite a lot of the games, and they're not. And they gave Hearts a good game, literally right up until the last kick of the ball. I don't think Hearts could have complained if they went away with a defeat or with the draw. I thought Livy gave them a really, really good game. And obviously, I kind of thought Livy would go down, but the way they've been playing the past couple of weeks, I think I could be wrong there. I think the league's a lot stronger than it was last year. Whether that's because Rangers and Celtic have brought themselves down a couple of pegs, or these other teams have improved. I mean, we'll get on to Aberdeen, but I potentially think Aberdeen, next week when Brooklyn comes back, potentially with Jordan on as well, I think we'll get right into the transfer talk because the transfer window is obviously fully closed now. I think Aberdeen do have the player of the season in Carlson, the Swedish winger from Bologna. But Hearts obviously signed well as well with Braga, obviously getting a goal again at the weekend. But Brooklyn's mentioned it quite a lot as well. And Livingston have also signed well. They've got Big Muirhead up front, who they did have last year, but he looks to be a good player again this year. So unlucky from Livy, but I'm starting to kind of more doubt my predictions with them. But it's still very early on. They could go and lose the next 4 or 5 games, and it turns out I wasn't far off with how I felt about them. But Hearts, they're getting these wins away from home. Obviously, the other week they had that draw at home to Motherwell, but that turned out to be a good point for them considering they were 3-0 down. So, I'm just going to have a wee drink here. Sorry, 2 secs. I thought that would be funny. I don't know why I did that. I've usually got a bottle of water here. I feel lost. I actually hate that I've done that. I hate that I've done that. I hate that I did that. But I don't know if that will get cut. But aye, good 3 points for Hearts. Obviously, they are joint on points now with Celtic. They've won 3 and drawn 1. And Hibs do have a game in hand, but it still wouldn't be enough for what I believe wouldn't be enough to put them on the same amount of points. They're still ahead of Hibs in that aspect. Next game, we will talk about one of the most boring and dreadful Old Firm derbies ever. It was so poor. I think since XG has become a stat, it's been the lowest ever game rated XG. Rangers was 0.16 and Celtic was 0.17. But at the end of the day, it was expected. I was a bit daft at predicting 3-1 because the way the both teams have been playing, 0-0 probably seemed like the most reasonable result. Rangers obviously got that goal, which was offside. the penalty shout for Miovski. I could be wrong here, but why? I feel that Rangers fans should be annoyed at him going down, because if he stays up, he's getting a shot at goal. And with his finishing ability, you kind of fancy him to score. And the way Schmeichel's playing at the minute, you'd fancy him to maybe not make the save. So I think it's a real strange one as to why he went down. Obviously looking for the penalty, but stay on your feet and have a shot at goal. Like, stay on your feet and have a shot at goal. I would be raging if, I was going to say Adam Ida, but if Shin Yamada done that, if he went down, you're through on goal, have a shot. But the game was absolutely dire. Can't really say much about the new winger. I mean, he probably didn't know a lot of the players' names, but he kept going back the way. Like, just go and express yourself. Nobody's going to fault you for going and doing that. You've been in the door 2 days. Just go for it. Run it, Tavernier. Maeda up front, still not for me. Not for me at all. And it was just poor, obviously. Next week, we'll get in more to the transfers, but I think it just shows Celtic that quality. They might have enough quality to get them this title this year, but European-wise, I don't feel good for them. Rangers, obviously. Rangers were poor as well, obviously. They've still not won a game in the league yet, and I do think at the end of the day, as much as Celtic should be like, this is a Rangers side you need to beat, whether Rangers are in League 3, which isn't even a league, sorry, whether Rangers are in League 2 and Celtic are top of the league, it's still an old firm. These games for them goes out the window. If Celtic go to Ibrox and come away with a point, you're absolutely taking it. You are taking it. So Celtic probably the better of the two teams. You know, boos still running around Ibrox towards either the team or Russell Martin or both. But Rangers will get a tough couple of fixtures coming up after the international break. So is Celtic. As I said, the league is a lot stronger this year, I believe. So I think Russell Martin is in a job until the Hibs game, and I think if Hibs knock them out the cup, I do think Russell Martin's away. Brendan Rodgers potentially did get undermined in the transfer window, saying that this Adam Ida will not be leaving until another striker gets brought in, and he was at the door before another striker did get brought in, and it had to be a free agent that Celtic brought in. And as I've said multiple times, I don't want to keep repeating myself. I know I'm kind of rushing through these games, but there is only so much I can talk about to myself. So next week, me and Brooklyn and possibly Jordan will dive right into the transfers and where we think these clubs are going to be with these. Yeah, a poor game, and there was never a moment. Obviously, when the goal goes in and you see it's offside 20 seconds later, but there was never a moment I was worried as a Celtic fan that Rangers were going to score. And I don't know if there was a moment for Rangers where they were worried that Celtic were going to score. Celtic still to concede a goal. Obviously, this happened last year. They went a good couple of games without conceding. That is a positive. I think defensively they are sound. Liam Scales, man of the match for me for both sides. Like Rangers and Celtic, man of the match. I thought Liam Scales was absolutely excellent. Questions on Kasper Schmeichel. I think he's a very, very lucky guy that John Souttar was offside. Obviously, he had that mistake in the cup final, which I potentially don't think that Sinisalo should have been dropped for. But what I think you might find happening, Kasper Schmeichel doesn't want to be a player that sits on the bench. I think if he does have another mistake that does cost Celtic a goal that actually stands, I think you'll see Sinisalo get brought in for a cup game. And if he plays well in that cup game, I believe you will see him remain the number one for the rest of the season because he get let off with one. I think Miovski's a great signing for Rangers, by the way. Don't get me wrong, I would have taken him at Celtic. And I'm interested to see what Ian Atchell brings. But obviously, a few weird things regarding the Europa League squad for Celtic. Shin Yamada has been left out of it, and Ian Atchell's been put in. I mean, I thought when Shin Yamada came on, he did look somewhat dangerous with his pace, and if he was holding the ball up, he was getting fouls. I feel like he could be a good player for Celtic, but he needs to get the time. I mean, I feel that players are very hard done by. Look at O. I was a big fan of O. And he was sold, and if he didn't feel a medical, he would have been sold for 28 million as well. So these are players that I feel that don't get given enough time at Celtic Rangers, because Yamada not getting in the Europa League squad tells me he might have a part to play on league for him, which suits me because I bet Brooklyn £50 that he'll score 15 league goals. But it's just a strange one. Why is Johnny Kenny not on the bench at Ibrox? But then why is Johnny Kenny in the Europa League squad and Yamada isn't? So there is a lot going on at Celtic, which I would rather have a back and forth with somebody when talking about it. So I would rather wait until next week when Brooklyn's back. But a very, very poor Old Firm, probably one of the worst I've ever seen. But yet Celtic have still came away from Ibrox with a point. But both teams do have a difficult run of fixtures. Celtic, their next home game actually isn't until kind of the end of September, whereas Rangers have got a couple of home games in a row, but it is against Hearts and it is against Hibs in the Cup, whereas Celtic have got like Kilmarnock away, Partick Thistle away in the Cup. So it'll be interesting to see what changes already happens in the next couple of weeks, because there's no way the league's over. People saying the league is over. You know, Celtic could lose a game and then draw a game. Rangers could win 2 games, and there you go, they're back. Rangers, nobody's going to split the Old Firm. Last year, Aberdeen won 12 games in a row, and they end up finishing nearly 6th, so 5th or 6th. So, nobody's going to split the Old Firm. There's no way this can continue at Rangers, but there's no way Celtic just getting by with results can keep on happening as well. Talking about the two teams' Europa League draw, as obviously Celtic crashed out of the Champions League to Kairat Almaty. Celtic, after last year getting one of the easier Champions League draws by chance, they've actually received the third hardest Europa League draw. Rangers have actually received one of the easier ones, but they were in a higher pot, to be fair, so it's not as if there's any sort of match fixing or that going on. I would never say there is, but before I get hounded for that. So Rangers got Roma, and so did Celtic. I think Roma personally beats the two sides. Rangers and Celtic also got Braga. I think Celtic and Rangers beat Braga. Rangers got Ludogorets. I think they can beat Ludogorets. I don't think they could beat Genk. I don't think they could beat Porto. I don't think they could beat Ferencvaros. I think they could beat Sturm Graz. I don't think they could beat Brann, personally. Celtic, I think Roma would win. I don't think they beat Feyenoord. I think they beat Braga. I think they beat Red Star. I think they beat Sturm Graz. I don't know if they could beat Midtjylland. I think Midtjylland could give them a game. I think they should beat Utrecht unless Barkanash comes back to Celtic Park and has a great heroic performance. And I don't think they beat Bologna. I do think that's just looking at the teams. I think when I dive into it more and do some research on every team here possible, I would like to think both teams could get through, you know, in the top amount that can go through. I don't believe any of the two teams get in the top 8, which automatically qualify you for the round of 16. I think both teams make it to the knockouts, but it's who they get in the knockouts that could really affect them. On to the Dundee derby. Obviously, Dundee, you know, they got that draw at Ibrox. They got the draw at Killie. I had a little bit of faith in them, but they were absolutely hopeless at the weekend. Dundee United, too, also has no European dream this year. Getting a 2-0 win in the first derby, obviously they had a far way to travel for the game, which I thought would maybe affect the players, but they went out and they got the 3 points. And obviously a lot of people are hanging with this Scottish thing and those Scottish players. I don't mind it. You know, you're out there to win football matches. You don't need 16 Scottish players on your squad to go win these matches. You need players to win matches, and I think it could work in both ways. Maybe when it gets to the end and they need people to know what it means to play in Scottish football and they know all the wee Scottish football tricks and tricks of the trade, really. Maybe you need the Scottish players then. But at the same time, you've also got a lot of players that maybe doesn't really know what it's like to play in Scotland, which might take the pressure off them a wee bit. So I think Dundee United can have a great season. under Jim Goodwin yet again, and Dundee, I'm afraid you will be in the Championship, and obviously your former manager Tony Docherty has just been given the Ross County job, so obviously they're in a bit of bother, so you might find Ross County are back up in the top flight next year with him in charge, who knows. Motherwell, who are backed to get in the top 6, still not won a game yet, but they've not lost a game, a 2-2 draw with Killie. I think Motherwell should have got the win, and I think they need to start winning if my top 6 shout wants to make a stance. I think they're so much better at how they play now. I think they're already getting better at playing out from the back already. But I'm sure their manager as well will want wins to start appearing. And Killie, who I never really fancied this year, aren't doing too badly, obviously. They are the same as Motherwell, played 4, drawn 4. But I think that will fall away pretty fast and pretty soon, and I think you will find Motherwell Kilmarnock, in a bit of bother this year. It's a long old season, and I don't think they have a good enough squad to last them the whole season. And I know we're 4 games in and they're undefeated, but I just think Killie will find themselves in a bit of bother this year. Stuart Kettlewell, I do think, is a great manager. Was a bit shocked when he left Motherwell, but we came to realise why he left Motherwell. But he's went back to his old club and he's left with a point. But I think Motherwell will be really disappointed in that. I think you really expect them to win these games, especially with how good football they're playing. So yeah, I think that was a disappointing result, more for them, definitely. But they need to start winning. I think if my top 6 shout is in with a chance. And also to Aberdeen, who get put out by Steaua Bucharest in the Europa League, which drops them into the Conference League. They had Falkirk, and it just shows you how much these European games can affect the teams, because Falkirk, who I don't think have been great this year, Brooklyn has backed them in at the top 6. We put a clip out on the TikTok and I said, Falkirk need to start winning, because towards the end of last season, they nearly bottled that league. And they've started this campaign not so great. They've went up to Aberdeen and they've come away with 3 points. And what a goal it was, by the way. See the play on the edge of the box. And a good finish as well. So it just shows you the European games is going to affect Aberdeen. It could affect Rangers and it could affect Celtic, especially with how poor Celtic's transfer window has been. Even though they should still cope in the league. But Aberdeen could find themselves in a bit of bother with the league if, no disrespect, they should be beating Falkirk at home and they're getting beat, and Aberdeen have been given the hardest draw possible in the Conference League. So they've got Shakhtar Donetsk, do not win that. Sparta Prague, do not win that. They've got Strasbourg, do not win that. They've got Athens, do not win that. They've got Noah, possibly win that. They've got Larna, who knocked out Legia Warsaw. So they don't win that. I think Aberdeen could find themselves in a bit of bother in the Conference League, and then that might also affect them in the league as well. But fair play to Falkirk, obviously. I don't want to see them winning, because Brooklyn also bet me £50 that they'll get into the top 6. But to go up there and win is a great win, and I did say they need to start picking up points soon. And they've went and done that. They've went and got 3 points up at Pittodrie, so fair play to them. So yeah, it just shows you can fire through a show quite quickly, but it's good to get a chat. Obviously, apologies for how short the show is. It was just last minute call-offs is sadly affected this, but next week we'll make it extra good. And just quickly talking about Scotland, who are just not really, I don't really feel good for Scotland at the minute. They played Denmark away. Obviously, this is out on the Friday night, so they'll be playing Denmark right now. They played Denmark away and then they played Belarus away. My quick predictions for that is we get beat 3-1 off of Denmark and we win 2-1 away to Belarus. What I will do is next week, obviously me and Brooklyn will do predictions, but I'm going to do mine now and I'll have an option to change mine next week. But but just to kind of add something towards the end of the episode. So when the football's back on the 13th and the 14th of September next weekend, Aberdeen are at home to Livingston. I believe that could be 3-1 Aberdeen. Dundee play Motherwell. I believe that could be 2-1 to Motherwell. Falkirk versus St Mirren. I believe that is 2-1 St Mirren. Rangers versus Hearts. I believe that's 2-2. I honestly still don't think Rangers win that game. I honestly don't. Hibs versus Dundee United. That will be 3-0 to Hibs. And then Kelly versus Celtic. I believe that will be 3-0 to Celtic. So I can change them next week if I feel like it. So that's the show over. Thank you very much for people who watched and listened. And I'm tempted to get that cancelled out. I don't know why I did that. I just thought, I think I've lost the plot a wee bit, being myself. But I hope you enjoyed. Obviously, don't forget to like, subscribe, and also share. A kind of last minute cancellation on both on Brooklyn and our guests. So hope Brooklyn and his family are well, and Jordan, I hope you get sorted, whatever you need to get sorted. But we'll be back next week with a much longer and juicier episode, as we say. So enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.